Please be seated. The court is now in session. Today, the chamber continue to hear the remaining testimony of Hum Hoi. Ms. Jie Si Huang, please report the attendance of the parties and other individuals to today's proceedings. Greffier. Mr. President, for today's proceedings, all parties to this case are present. Mr. Nguyen Chie is present in the holding cell downstairs. He has waived his rights to be present in the courtroom. The waiver has been delivered to the greffier. The witness who is to conclude his testimony today, Mr. Hum Hoi, and Mr. Mom Rati, his duty counsel, are present in the courtroom. There is no reserved witness today. Thank you. President, thank you, Ms. Jie Si Huang. The Chamber now decides on the request by Nguyen Chie. The Chamber has received a waiver from Nguyen Chie dated 5th May 2016, which states that due to his health, headache, back pain, he cannot sit or concentrate for long. And in order to effectively participate in future hearings, he requests to waive his presence at the 5th May 2016 hearing. Having seen the medical report of Nguyen Chie by the duty doctor for the accused at the ECCC, dated 5th May 2016, which states that Nguyen Chie has severe back pain and cannot sit for long, and recommends that the chamber shall grant him his request so that he can follow the proceedings remotely from a holding cell downstairs. Based on the above information and pursuant to Rule 81.5 of the ECCC internal rules, the chamber grants Nguyen Chie his request to follow today's proceedings remotely from a holding cell downstairs via and audio-visual means. The chamber instructs the AV unit personnel to link the proceedings to the room downstairs so that Nguyen Chie can follow. That applies to the whole day. I'd like now to hand the floor to the defense team for Nguyen Chie to put further questions to the witness. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors. Good morning, Counsel. And good morning, Mr. Witness. I would like to start this morning with one follow-up question in relation to the matter of your conviction in the early 80s of the other century. Mr. President, I'll be referring to a book from Craig Atchison. It's document E3/1813. There's only an English ERN. It's page 000-78740. Let me read this excerpt to you, Mr. Witness. Atchison writes, and I quote, during the early 1980s, him Hui, surrendered to the government authorities, professing his loyalty to the new order and a desire to return to the national community. He was given a lenient sentence of 1 year of re-education and was then released to return to life as a farmer, unquote. My question is about one particular part of this sentence, professing his loyalty to the new order. Did you at any point in time, before or after your release, profess your loyalty to what Atchison calls the new order?
Can I just ask a question while the witness is thinking? Does Atchison actually reference something? when he alleges this in his book? Or does it go without reference?
He refers to a footnote 16, which I'm happy to provide you later, but I don't have it right in front of me. But there is a footnote which I presume is a source for that.
Just tell us the nature of the source.
I think it's an endnote, so I cannot see the source now, but I will provide it to you shortly. Mr. Witness?
President, you please be careful with the word you use, whether to serve the sentence in a legal term is different. However, from the testimony of this witness, it seems that he did not serve any sentence. As for the punishment he received, might possibly be an administrative measure that was imposed upon him during that period, that is after the 7 January 1979 and prior and before the establishment of the People's Court, which was established in February 1982, and that in fact those courts were in operation at a later date. That is based on my observation that those courts actually began their operations in 1984. And if you refer to the conviction and the serving of a sentence, you need to actually refer to a final judgment. So please be precise in your questioning. I understand that this is an important matter for the defense, since you objected to the witness exercising his rights to remain silent yesterday. And Judge Laverne, you have the floor.
Oui, c'est juste pour demander à Maître Copé qui nous...
Counsel Copé, can you give us the reference of Etchison's book? Because we have E3, 18, 83, but it doesn't seem to correspond to what you're saying.
Yes, Judge Laverne, maybe something went wrong in translation. It is E3 1813. 1813. Answering your question, Mr. President, I'm not vague as to the exact year. It's Etchison who's referring to the early 80s. I have now found the source for Etchison's sentence. He refers to an interview he conducted himself with Him Hui in February 96. So that seems to be Etchison's source.
Just as a matter of interest, do we have the interview? To the best of your knowledge?
I haven't seen that in the case file while preparing, but I will have another look. So, Mr. Witness, returning to my original question, Etchison, who might have been speaking to you at one point in time, said that you, quote unquote, professed your loyalty to the new order. Is that something you did? Is that something you told Etchison?
I cannot recall that.
You cannot recall saying that to Etchison or not recall doing that, professing your loyalty?
I did not know anything about that.
Very well. I'll move on, Mr. Witness, to something that we were also discussing yesterday. I was asking you a question about when you were sent.
Council, please hold on, and Judge Laverne, you have the floor.
Oui, je suis en train de lire le livre.
I am reading Craig Etcheson's book. I see that he's referring to a person called Yu Ui, not to him Ui. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong, but he refers to Hui, for example, a Khmer Rouge Garde who was chief of guards. I don't think there's another Hui who is chief of guards.
Enfin, Maître Copé, quand vous dites...
Mr. Kope, when you say it is Im Ui, and you say that it is Im Ui who is being referred to in Craig Etcheson's book, that is not correct.
Maybe you should read the footnote, Judge Laverne. It says, author's interview with Yu Hui alias him. So there's no doubt he was referring to him Hui, besides the fact that there's no Yu Hui who was chief of guards. But let me return, Mr. Witness, to my original question. You leaving to praise SAR. You said it was mid-78. Can you recall when exactly it was in mid-78? Can you be a bit more precise as to when you were sent to praise SAR to farm rice?
Can I recall the dates that I was sent there? And actually, I was in fear when that said I was preparing a rebellious plan. And after that, I was sent to go there, but I can't recall the date.
Have you ever heard of the leader of the East Zone, former leader, Sao Pim?
I heard of the name Sao Pim. People spoke about him.
Sao Pim died on the 3rd of June, 1978. So that was around the time he was defeated. Was it before Sao Pim's defeat or after Sao Pim's defeat that you were sent to praise SAR?
I did not know about that.
Very well. Mr. Witness, does your answer that you were sent to praise SAR mid-78 mean that you were not at S21 in January 79 when the Vietnamese tanks arrived in Phnom Penh?
I was working in the rice fields. When Vietnamese were entering Phnom Penh, we were called to be guarded.
I understand, but just to be sure, you were not, in fact, around the premises of S21. You were not close to the irrigation canal, for instance. You were not there where now is the former of the Tuol Sleng Museum. You weren't actually there, correct?
I was to the south of that vicinity.
So you were in Phnom Penh and not in Prey Sar. Is that what you're saying?
I was working in the rice fields to the south of Jing Ai.
Very well. So when Duik is saying or implying that you were working at S21 until the very last day, he is incorrect. Am I right?
A few days after he accused me of planning the rebellion, he ordered Ho to order me to go and work in the rice fields there. So I actually went there to work in the rice field to build dikes, and after the rainfall, I actually transplanted the seedlings.
So was it then maybe not mid-78 you went to Prey Sar, but the end of 78?
It was in mid-1978, because at that time I was assigned to build dikes and to clear the forest in that area.
Fine, Mr. Witness, let me move on to another subject. Yesterday, you briefly referred to this already. Do you know whether there was a conflict or a clash between members of Division 703 or former members of Division 703 and Duik's men within S21?
Taho told my group that he actually argued with Dutch for 3 times since he stood by his men, and that's what we were told. And from that day on, I kept quiet. I did not argue with the Dutch men. And later on, they planned to arrest members of our group.
Are you implying that the arrest of former Division 703 members was the result of the conflict between Duik on the one hand and Hor on the other hand?
People who worked at S21 who had some arguments, that is during the meetings between Ho and Dutch, since they actually took sides with their men. Ho told us not to argue with his men, otherwise we would be subject to arrest. So from that day onward, we did not argue.
So do you know how many S21 cadres originally coming from Division 703 were at one point in time sent to Prey Sar? How many?
I cannot recall it. However, I saw 6 or 7 men, and together with Hui, there were about 10 of us. And only Paul survived, and the rest were detained and killed at S21.
But you survived too, didn't you?
Hui was arrested in 79, rather several months before the regime fell in 79, the whole was to be arrested, and my group, and including myself, had to be arrested and killed.
Was Brother Teng also in your group, and was he also sent to Presar?
That group remained there and was not sent to Presar since the whole assigned them to be there.
I will get back to Brother Teng shortly. Let me now ask you some general questions about Division 703 and Regiment 21. Do you have any knowledge as to the total size of Regiment 21? How many men, how many cadres or combatants were there in total within S21?
Witness, please hold on, and Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you have the floor.
I couldn't tell whether counsel was asking how many members there were in Regiment 21 as a whole, or how many members of Regiment 21 ended up working at S21.
That latter question was going to be my follow-up question. My first question was, Mr. Witness, do you know the total number of all the men, so not only S21, the Tool Slang compound, but all the men within Regiment 21, how many there were?
I do not recall the total number, however, there were over 200.
Just to be very clear, I'm not talking about the guards and the interrogators at the location which is now known as the Tool Slang Museum. I'm referring to all the members of Regiment 21, including those working at Presar, including those working at logistics offices, etc. Do you know how many men there were in total?
I do not know the total number.
Referring, Mr. President, to E31/1136, English ERN 00543-743, Khmer 0016-0081, and French 0054-8764. That's a document which speaks about, as it is called, the rice consumption plan in 1976 for all divisions, including Division 703. And it says that in 1976 there were about 2,048 men, combatants, working in total for Regiment 21. Is that correct?
I do not recall the total number.
Do you know who Comrade Sam was?
The name does not ring a bell.
Who was the commander in 76 of Regiment 21, early 76, do you know?
did not understand because at S21 there was no regiment.
Do you know whether a year later, in March 77, Regiment or Office 21 had about 2,300 men or combatants working for them?
I did not understand about the number.
Do you know who the commander was of Division 703 in early 76?
The person that I knew for sure was Tapin, the divisional commander. As for Pang, Pang was the commander of Division 703.
Have you ever heard that Division 703 was 3 times bigger, roughly in size, than Office 21 or Regiment 21?
Please repeat your question, I don't get it.
Do you know whether Division 703 that you just spoke about was in 76 roughly 3 times bigger than Regiment 21?
No, I did not hear anything about that.
Do you know anything of about the hierarchy within Division 703? Pin was its commander. Who was number 2? Who was number 3? Who was number 4? Do you know?
I do not recall that, and I did not know who was the next person after the two.
Do you know how high in rank Hor was when you compare him to Pin?
Ho was lower in rank comparing to Pin and Nat.
I understand that, but do you know, can you say anything about Hor's position toward Pin? Was he directly below Pin, or was he 2 ranks or 3 ranks below Pin? Do you have any idea?
Mr. President, it might be helpful to have a particular period of time that we're talking about here. These are things that could have changed over time. So I think to be precise, it would be helpful to know what period Council's interested in.
Sure. I'm referring to early 76 until March 77. So again, yes. Again, Mr. Witness, do you have any idea as to Hor's position at one point in time relating to Pin?
I did not know about that. What I knew is that Pin was at the divisional level, while Ho was at the regimental level.
And then finally, in relation to those 2,000 combatants working for Regiment 21, you've talked extensively about Duik and also Hor. Can you tell us anything about the command structure of the complete regiment, all 2,000 men, how they were structured.
I did not know about the structure.
That's no problem, Mr. Witness. Let me move to S21 itself. And when I say S21, I don't mean the full 2004's regiment, but I mean the inner working of what we now know as Tuol Sleng.
Mr. President, I think that question conflates Regiment 21 of Division 703 with Office S21. And I just don't think that that's what the evidence is in the case. So if counsel could provide a citation that Regiment 21 is the same thing as S21, I think it's important to provide evidence of that before incorporating that into a question.
Something went wrong with my receiver, but if I understood the question correctly, is the source of the evidence that Regiment 21 was much larger than its office at Tuol Sleng. Well, that's basically coming from those.
It's different than that. It's that S21 was even a part of Regiment 21. I don't think the evidence shows that. So if that's the premise of the question, then we'd appreciate a citation. And just to be clear, we agree that there's evidence that there were members of Division of 703 who were lent, as the witness put it yesterday, to S21. But that's different than saying that S21 was a part of Regiment 21 or a part of Division 703.
Well, the documents that I refer to, Mr. President, gives a head count of all divisions and autonomous regiments. One of them is 21. The other ones are, as we know, 703, 450, 310, etc.
Since the question was asked, just repeat the references.
As I just referenced already, E3/1136, which is the rice consumption plan in 1976. There's an overview of all divisions with a total number of combatants and with the names of, as it is called here, the unit chairs, the commanders. There's another document which is called the Joint Statistics of Armed Forces, which is of March 76, document E3/849. It's referring to various units. French translation is a bit more accurate than the English, and it says that, for instance, Division 703 has 5,369 combatants, and Office S21 or Centre S21 2,327 or 28 cadres, and then it says not including components, and in French, sans compter les éléments, presumably referring to the people who were detained. So there is no doubt whatsoever as to the total number of people working for Regiment 21. Confirmed also by minutes of meetings between Division 703, Regiment 21, and Son Sen, the General Staff. So, having said that, Mr. President, may I continue? Mr. Witness, do you know anything about the chain of command, the hierarchy structure in the total force of Regiment 21?
I do not know about that.
Fine. Like I said, no problem. Ms. Witness, let me move to something that you might be able to tell us, and that is the number of men working at what is now known as the Toolslang Museum, that compound. How many men, how many combatants, and I mean guards, interrogators, logistics people were working in S21 and its surrounding parameters?
There were around 300 soldiers.
And is that only guards, or are you now also calculating the, or including the interrogators?
That was the total number. The number was around 300.
Mr. President, I would like, with your leave, to show a head count of staff working within S21, presumably the compound and its outer parameters. It is, I have here the Khmer version I would like to show to the witness. It is document E3/8386. Khmer page is 00002640, English 00521634, and French 00532736.
Just tell us for the record which time, at the head count at what time?
That is a good question, because the document doesn't give an indication as to when it was produced or which period it refers to. But it is coming from or attached to something called Circular. It's an Office S21 Phnom Penh Circular, and it is about guards, disciplines, etc. I referred to this document earlier, I believe, when I was examining Tai Teng, or Brother Teng.
President, yes, please.
Mr. Witness, I hope you had a chance to have a look at this, this document. I'm interested in one or two things. It says, I believe in Khmer, first the words guarding unit, and then it says inside guards 127 persons. A little bit down on that page it says messenger unit, and then it says guards inside the special rooms, 42 persons. Let me ask you first of all, do you recognize this handwriting? Do you know who wrote this?
No, I don't.
Do the words guarding unit or inside guards on the very top mean anything to you? The line that says inside guards 127 persons.
I do not know how many inside guards were there at the center. It was under the supervision of Peng.
And a little further down, it says guards inside the special rooms, 42 persons. Were you part of that group, guards inside the special rooms?
No, I was part of another group outside.
Is your group not mentioned in this overview?
Yes, but the number is wrongly mentioned. Not 8 of us, but more than 10. My apology. Together with the drivers, the total number of my group was more than 10. And some of us had been arrested. That was the remaining members of that group in the center, that we had only more than 10 after the arrest of some other.
Now I think I understand. You were part of what is described here, the group called arresters. You were one of the 8 arresters, as it is translated into English. Is that correct?
The so-called arrestor unit consisted of not 8 members, but more than 10.
I understand, but were you yourself a member of what is described here as the group of 8 arresters?
Could you repeat your question?
Well, earlier you said it wasn't 8 but 10, this group, and then you seem to refer to the group of arresters of 8 persons. My question to you is, were you a member of the group arresters in this overview?
I was the group chief of the arresters who were responsible for arresting prisoners. So again, I was the chief of that group.
And in that same overview, it says guards inside the special rooms, 42 persons. Was Brother Teng a member of that particular group?
Teng was at Chiang Ek.
Or so he says indeed, but Teng also says he was at S21 before he went to Chiang Ek. Was Brother Teng, when he was a guard, member of this group of guards inside the special rooms?
He was a former inside guard. But there were 3 groups in the compound, I mean the inside guards, and in total there were around 30 members from that 3 groups.
I might revisit that point a bit later, Mr. Witness. Just to make sure that I fully understand the division of tasks within S21, I would like to read to you an excerpt from Duik's testimony. I will go through it step by step, and then I will ask you whether you agree with this, yes or no. Mr. President, I will be referring to an excerpt from Duik's testimony in case 1, which is now known as E3/5793, and I'll be referring to his testimony as of 9 minutes past 10.
Mr. President, we seem to be embarking on a new topic, and it is the practice of this chamber that open questions should be asked before the witness has evidence, either from his own statements or from other witnesses, put to him. So I'd ask that counsel ask open questions on the topic before he starts putting to the witness.
I'm a bit lost here. To be honest, Mr. President, I think we've extensively been discussing the subject of his duties, Peng's duties, him receiving prisoners, etc. So I think it's extensively discussed and debated or questioned yesterday. So I think I can go straight to the point and ask him to give a reaction on Duik's testimony.
Well, it appears a bit premature because we don't know yet what part of Duik's testimony he wants to use.
I agree, Your Honor. I'll wait to hear the question. Thank you.
As I said, Mr. Witness, I'll be reading a bit from Duik's testimony, and I'll be asking you questions subsequently. The normal guards, under Poch and Peng's supervision, were only guarding inside the premises. But for the people who guarded the special prisons, which were the south of Ponya Yat High School, the prisoners were guarded by the special force. Therefore, Peng's forces guarded inside, the special forces of Comrade Hui guarded outside. Question: could you please clarify the special forces? What were they assigned to do? And then Duik answers as follows. The special force had the following 6 tasks. First, to guard outside the premises. 2, to wait to receive victims who were brought in. Normally, outside units sent victims to be detained at S21. First, they delivered them to a house labeled as R, or R in English. Now, it is the location where Beehive radio station is occupied. Those people received prisoners and registered their names and then delivered them to the guards, and Hui would take the prisoners to Comrade Peng. After that, Hui could be relieved of their duty. So far this excerpt, Mr. Witness. The way Duik describes the various tasks of the 2 units, is that how it was in your recollection?
Let me tell you, the group which was outside at the current Beehive radio station was my group. And in fact, those prisoners' names were not registered or written down. I would have forwarded those prisoners to Susi right away.
So you do not agree with what Duik says, that whenever people who were arrested, prisoners were coming, were assembled at the Beehive radio station, the building which is now known as the Beehive radio station.
That was not the building, it was simply a small house or hut. upon arrival, they were pushed inside that house, and then they were walked out of the house. There was a rule that the vehicles arriving should not have been allowed to go inside the compound for being afraid that the secret would be broken.
I will come back to the registration a bit later, Mr. Witness. I'm very interested in the sentence that I just wrote to you, coming from Duke's testimony. He says, you would take the prisoners to Comrade Peng, and after that Hui could be relieved of their duty, of his duty, I presume. Is it correct that once you handed over the prisoners into Comrade Peng's power, you were done? You could rest?
That is correct. But usually I did not hand over prisoners to Peng. Most of the time I handed over prisoners to Susti, and as for Peng, he was as usual guarding the building.
He continues his testimony as follows. He says, so this is the duty of the guards, to receive prisoners and to deliver them to the guards. Third duty, the internal intervention. For example, when the enemies grabbed a weapon, then the special force would intervene under the supervision of Comrade Hoare to fight fiercely to defend the unit, the office and the party at the premises. Fourth, if there were any outside intervention, these people would be ready to defend the premises from the outside intervention, but there was none of such intervention from the outside. And then number five, he says, sometimes this special force arrested people who were made decision, the people who were already decided by the superior to arrest. For example, like in the case of Koitun, and when Chim Sa Ok, alias Pang, was arrested by the special force. So Comrade Hoare did conduct such of the arrests. There were only people and I was the commander. Hoare was the arrester. And a bit further down he says, and I conclude, the guards who were stationed at Chiang Ek was part of the special force. As far as I remember, there were 4 people in that small unit, 3 to 4 people who were stationed at that location. Mr. Witness, this is a bit longer excerpt. I hope you were able to follow, but is what Duik describes as to the tasks of, as what the tasks were of the special unit. Is that correct? Is that your recollection as well?
The explanation by Tadoj was not right. The Big Bill members from the inside, together with members from my group, joined forces and addressed the issue.
Well, let's take one example that Duik refers to, the arrest of Koitun. Were you involved? Was the group of arresters or the special force, was that group involved in the arrest of Koitun?
My group also went. In fact, there were big bill guards from inside, and for my group, there was only one person with big bill. So we needed the guards from inside with big build.
I understand, but Were you personally, were you yourself involved in Koi Toon's arrest?
បាទកុយធួន
In fact, Koi Toon had been arrested at the Dutch house, Tahor, and I, together with the Big Bill forces from inside, joined the action at the time. 6 or 7 of us did the mission.
Can you explain why you needed to have big build forces to arrest Koi Toon? Because maybe I'm wrong, but my impression was that Koi Toon was already under house arrest.
That was the rule, and I do not have any information further on this rule.
Mr. President, just to be sure that we're talking about Koi Toon, with your leave, I would like to show a photo to the witness, and I also would like to put it on screen.
I have no problem with that, just, sorry, because I didn't understand the answer. You said that was the rule. Was there one rule for the deployment of what you call the big build guys, one rule for all, or was there a specific arrangement for Koi Toon? I didn't quite get the answer.
I do not really get what you said, Your Honor. Could you repeat it?
You said that when you were asked about the big build guys, you said that was the rule. Did I understand that correctly?
បាទខ្ញុំមិនមែន
I did not go and gather forces. It was Tahor who went inside and gathered the forces.
But then apparently there has been a translation issue. I hand back to you, Counsel, for clarification.
Yes, thank you. Mr. President, again, with your leave, I would like to show a photo of Koi Toon, and I would like to ask the witness whether he recognizes the person as Koi Toon. I think the AV unit can also put it on the screen. It's, for the record, E3/9431. It's photograph 32, annexed 32 to the reenactment. English ERN is 00198061.
President, yes. AV technician, please displays on the screen the photo as requested by Copper.
Mr. Witness, do you recognize the person on this photo?
It is the photo of Koi Toon.
And were you involved in the actual arrest of Koi Toon?
បាទអ្នកដែលចាប់គឺពេ
It was Peng, Big Bill guys, arrested him, and I was simply acting as guards.
My next question is, do you know, once Koi Toon had been arrested, where he subsequently was placed? Where was Koi Toon being held, being detained? Which building?
The detention building was in the southern part.
Can you be a little bit more specific? What do you mean with southern part?
It was the building to the south. That is, if we entered from the main entrance, the building was to the south part.
Do you know whether there actually was another perimeter around houses or buildings which belong to the so-called special prison?
That was the building.
I understand, but my question was, do you know whether the building in which Koitun was detained was in its turn also surrounded by fences or perimeter? Do you know anything about that?
The prisons were surrounded by fences.
Do you know whether these fences surrounding the special prison buildings was made of zinc, Z-I-N-C?
Yes, it was barbed wire.
So just to be entirely sure, the special prison had its own perimeter with its own fence with barbed wire, apart from S21 or Toolslang Museum, correct?
As I said, the prisons were surrounded by fences, and the building was also surrounded by fences.
And is it correct that the two outside perimeters, on the one hand the outside perimeter of the special prison, and on the other hand the outside perimeter of Toolslang, met at Street 350?
I did not know which roads you refer to, but I only knew the main entrance to the building, and I knew the building where important prisoners were detained.
Do you know whether it was one building? Were it a few houses? Can you describe a bit the inside premises of the special prison? What was inside the barbed wire?
I cannot recall the details. He was walked to be imprisoned in the south building, and each building was surrounded by barbed wire.
And do you remember or do you know who had the authority to enter the premises of the special prison?
It was Ho and Dutch.
Were you allowed to enter the special premises, the premises of the special prison?
I was allowed occasionally to enter their building when I was assigned to walk along the veranda or the open path in front of each room.
Do you know which interrogators had the permission to enter the premises of the special prison?
I did not know who.
But do you know who was in a position to decide who was allowed into the premises of the special prison? Was there a list with names of interrogators, or was there a special list that guards had to use in order to enable anyone entering the premises of the special prison?
It was three groups who could do that, and he was a part of the guards.
And are you in a position to give an estimate as to the maximum amount of persons that were allowed to enter the premises of the special prison?
I did not know about that.
Do you know how many houses there were within the perimeter of the special prison?
I did not know if there were houses or number of houses. I only knew about that building.
Do you know?
Sorry, Mr. President, there's just one thing I think we might want to clarify. The witness spoke about walking along a veranda. I'm not sure whether he's describing one of the buildings of the high school compound itself or one of the surrounding houses. I think that could be an important clarification.
Mr. Witness, I'm not sure if I heard that as well. My questions are directed only to the buildings or houses within the perimeter of the special prison. My question was going to be, do you know which house Koitun was being held? Which house within the premises of the special prison Koitun was sitting? Presumably, I'm not sure where this photo was taken.
I did not know. As for the special prison, usually we refer to the building on the left-hand side when we entered the compound, and usually important prisoners were detained there. President, thank you, Council. It is now appropriate for short break. We take a break now and resume at 10:30 to continue our proceedings. Court officer, please assist the witness during the break time and invite him as well as his duty counsel back into the courtroom at 10:30. The court is now in recess.
សូមចេញក្រោកឈរ